Welcome to T3 Teach Tech Theater. It is Tech Theater Thursday, and Julie and I thought we would spend the day kind of talking about our quarantine COVID experience. It's been a bit of a journey, and then as of Friday of last week, our journey changed. So, Julie, I'm going to have you start. Let's talk about when the whole world ended on March 13th, and how has this whole time been for you?
Well, we talked briefly about this before, when school ended, and I thought, oh, it's going to be for a little bit of time, and I'll maybe push my show off, and I'll push my show off, and then once I came to the realization that simply wasn't happening, and I just started to pretend that it was going to be online anyway, but I didn't know. So I thought that if I just pretended it was going to be online and I started preparing for it to be online, that it would stop me from being full of anxiety. But that was a lie. The anxiety was still there. I was just pretending and putting a Band-Aid over it. So all of our colleagues are so generous, and there were so many lesson plans out there and so much information. So one of the things about my personality that I have learned is that I love information. I love inputting information and learning new stuff. So I'm like, great, I'm going to gather all of this stuff, and I'm going to put it, and I'm going to label it, and I'm going to put it in different folders, and I'm going to do all this stuff. And so I've done all of that. And now here we are coming up to school, and I now have to actually write lesson plans for all of this information, which is great. But, it's taking me longer than I thought, and I'm trying to really reframe. Okay, I'm sure, like most of you, or like I'll just speak for myself. I didn't have lesson plans. I knew what I was doing. I'd been doing this long enough. I had it in my back pocket. I was able to do the scene. I was able to do the whatever it was. I had, like, oh, we're going to do the costume one. Let me go get the costume things out, or let me get the shoes out, or let me go do whatever. It only took about, 10 minutes of preparation because I knew what I was doing already. Well, in a virtual world, that's all so different. And it's not that I can't do those lessons. I totally can still do those lessons virtually, but I have to package it in a whole different way. And whether someone is synchronous or asynchronous, and making sure that the students have all of the links, the things that I would have normally just helped them with, now I have to make sure that they know how to do it. And I really thought that I could just study my way through this. And it's all coming down in this last couple of weeks, and I'm feeling pretty anxious. And not that I don't think I can do it, I totally can, but it's harder than I thought.
I fully agree with you. Now, you and I had a very different path as to how we handled this whole thing. So at the beginning of quarantine, everything was just a lot of, like Julie, we had assumptions that we were going to just have this extended vacation, and then we were going to go back. And then when the reality was, no, that wasn't it. It was creating curriculum in survival mode for those last few weeks of school. And let's just get through this. Actually, I was very pleased with what we did.
Absolutely.
I felt it was really good. And then once school was out, Julie, you and I were working on the possibility of doing a virtual thing for the Hoya Playhouse. And we were talking about, what are the possibilities? And
you had hand surgery.
Oh, I did. Yes. And I had, yes.
Remember what happens in the year, because it all kind of goes together.
Right? And I had surgery on my trigger finger tendon, so that kind of sidelined me for a bit. And whereas you went and searched for knowledge, I avoided it as much as I possibly could. I still had all my Facebook groups that have been so fabulous, but any craft or project that I could do that had nothing to do with teaching, I did. I literally repainted the entire interior of my home, little craft projects along the way, furniture renovation. It was really all I could do to pretend that school didn't exist anymore. And I was okay with that. So sometimes Julie would call, or she would shoot something, oh, this is amazing, you should check this out. And I was like, yep. All right, I'm going to go paint something. And part of me felt quite guilty about that, because usually I'm the curriculum queen. Instead, then, it was every little project under the sun. My list of things that I've never had a chance to do because I'm either doing a show or working in the summer, everything is pretty much done and has been since March. So I would post all these, here's my quarantine project, quarantine project, quarantine project. So much so that last week, you would think I would be getting ready for school, by the way. But last week, my mother and my friend Claudia, who was my choreographer, great family friend, we spent 4 days gutting and cleaning out this gigantic costume shed of mine at Granite Hills. It probably had not been done in pretty much forever. And, but it was a great avoidance project. And we went from 9 o'clock in the morning till about 3 for 4 days in a row.
It is school related, except for you're not going to have any performances this year.
Right. Like that's a problem because now it's all pretty. And you know what? With no shows, it's not going to get messed up.
It's going to stay pretty for a little while.
Yes. So that's kind of where I've been. And so we kind of just approach things a little bit differently. I will say that having attended the Broadway Teachers Workshop a couple weeks ago started to get me excited again about theater. I didn't want to watch stuff. There was so much stuff that was available streaming wise. Check out this play. Check out this play. First off, I'm all about the jazz hands and the sparkle. So if there's a play that teaches me about the meaning of life, I'm not a fan. So Julie would say something, this one really makes you think. And I would be like, that's nice.
I do enjoy myself some sad theater. Is it bleak and makes you feel horrible when you leave? Yes, please.
So can I say that this is why we work so well together? Because there would be times when we'd be working at La Jolla Playhouse in the summertime and we'd have an opportunity to go see a show. And we'd hear a little bit about it and Julie would go, it's going to be thought-provoking. I'll go. And I'm like, musical? Let's go! So I think that's the best part. So we got the notice. I'm looking at a calendar, which is why I'm looking beyond this. But on Thursday, July 9th, our school board officially adopted our calendar for our blended learning model. And it was a model of the students were divided into fourths, A, B, C, D. They would be at school 1 day a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And they would go through half of their schedule. So it was all of the odd classes. So periods 1, 3, 5, and 7 would meet in quarter 1, and then quarter 2, it would be periods 2, 4, 6. So the idea is that you have a fourth of the kids in class, and they would only have, in theory, half of their classes. So we were all ready to go with this blended learning model, which actually, in theory, I was excited about because, especially at the beginning of the year, I would at least get to physically see my kids and connect. That was the important part, is that, it's so hard to connect in these little boxes. But we figured that you see them even an hour a week, there's a chance to go human, yes. But with that then became all these terrifying concerns because of the COVID virus.
As all the theater teachers in our district, we went in and we were looking at our spaces, and we were looking at how many people can actually fit in this space, how many people can fit on stage, thinking about what ensemble thing can we do that doesn't have people near each other. If I have a tech class, how am I teaching that without being close to a kid? How am I making sure that, for my tech class, when I thought I was going to build something, there's only two chop saws. And so everyone's got to use those two chop saws. Am I cleaning it every single time? Are we wearing gloves? Like, how am I keeping everyone safe? For the kids who decide not to come back at all, we were preparing like kits to take home of, here's some graph paper and a ruler and some pencils and some colored pencils of, like, here, take this home. Even when I see you the one day, here, take this home. You're going to keep that with you for the whole quarter. Because I'm going to ask you to do stuff. And, I don't know whether you've got 4x6 index cards at your house, but now you do. So all of the things of like, how are we going to make this work? I was excited as Kirsten was, I was excited to see them, because no matter what side you feel on this fence about education or about going back to school or not going back to school or anything, I don't think that there is anybody who doesn't want to be with their students. I want to be with my students. Do I think it's safe? That's a whole nother question. But I want to be with my students because that's how education works. I want to be close to them. I want to connect with them. I don't want to do it with a mask where I can't see their faces. I don't want to do it where I only have a quarter of my kids, and so it's like having a really small audience where no one laughs, um, because I feed off of it. Um, but safety was a whole other thing. But if every teacher I know wants to teach their students, that's why we're here. That's why we're teachers.
So it became kind of that concern. And then how do we do this blended learning thing where we're going to really, in essence, see the kids for 9 hours and the rest of the time would be online. And so there was a lot of confusion as to, wait, how is that game going to work and what's going to go on with that? And we had just kind of started having conversations about that. And I got really hooked up into the safety elements of it and just started really getting concerned. I have a mom who's got some health concerns, and I was ready to tell her, I see her quite a bit. And I had told her, when we go back to this blended learning model, I will not be physically seeing you, because I was worried about what I could do, health-wise to her. Not to mention what I could do health-wise to me. I'm not being dramatic, but I was in the process of revamping my will. So there was a lot going on. Then on Friday, July 17th at noon, Governor Gavin Newsom had a press conference. San Diego County, which is where we are, had been placed officially on his watch list based on COVID cases or whatever the criteria is. And he had made an announcement that everybody, I think there were 28 counties at that point, it's now up to 33 counties that are on the watch list, are going to be 100% distance learning. So that was a huge relief for me. But then it was like, okay, now we're in a now what again, in a week of we were headed in one direction and now we're headed in another direction.
And we start school, the kids start on the 10th of August.
Right.
The teachers are going back on the 3rd. Of like, 3rd. Okay. Right. How am I going to get that together?
Now, how does this work? So we've been in contact quite a bit, and we've been in contact with the theater teachers in our district, talking a lot about what's going to be happening. I had an opportunity to watch a webinar actually today from a group called Theater Makers Studio, and it was a webinar on inclusion in theater. And there was a playwright actor, his name is Douglas Lyons, and he said something that really actually resonated. I knew that we were going to have this conversation today just about where we're headed with stuff. And he said, and I'm reading it right now, that 2020 is a chance for us to redo our usual. Mm. And we've said it before, I believe, in these podcasts, that we're all going to be first-year teachers now. If we're going 100% virtual learning, what in the world is that? Since I don't think that March really counted. I'm not displeased with what we did, but it's a different world now. So with our chance to redo the usual, we are now, in 2 weeks, we've had 2 resets, right? So Julie and I wanted to kind of chat a little bit about what things we are doing to help reset. And one of the things that we talk about with T3 is that the challenge, of course, is that everybody wants to reset or when you're a theater teacher in a program, it's your world. So there's that idea of, this is a whole new world for everybody, so I've got to change everything. We've kind of come up with some things that might be a little bit helpful in that maybe you just need to look at 1 or 2 things to really focus on. Grab what you can from all of the very generous folks out there on Facebook and everywhere else that is like, here's this unit, here's this unit, here's this unit, and we're going to get through that part together. But what is it that 2 things that you can focus on to help create a new culture in this new usual?
So, I've been teaching I just finished my 24th year, and every summer I would always think, oh, I'm going to change things, but really I would end up going into the same way. But this year, really, it is going to change. And not that I obviously wanted to have a pandemic, but I'm trying to reframe things of, there are a lot of things a lot of gifts that I'm going to be taking out of this time. Um, I have a gift of, I'm not doing shows. I have more time to devote to my curriculum. I have more time to devote to myself, to my family. I don't have to run myself ragged. Um, I have the time to change things. I don't have to teach the way that I've always taught. I don't have to do ensemble building and then pantomime and then talking and storytelling and then moving up to monologues. I don't have to do that. I don't have to teach pantomime at all because it might not go as well in this particular format. Um, I had fallen into the trap of performance, performance, performance. Now, obviously, yes, I have 2 classes that were building for the show, and I had a class that was a performance show, and then I had my beginning kids. And performance really, I wasn't their favorite thing in the first place. They're getting more and more frightened to do it. So why can't I do a puppetry thing that I've always wanted to, but I never had time? Because I always had that other show in my head, and then I had to make sure I was getting my show ready, and it just takes up too much mental real estate. Why can't I spend more time? I mean, I will be spending more time on making sure the students are okay, making sure they're able to self-regulate. If you go to any conservatory class or conservatory program and you're a beginning actor, they spend months teaching you to breathe, teaching you to do a body scan. I would do it maybe once or twice with the kids. I'm like, this is what a body scan is. And then I'd never touch it again. Let me make that a tradition. Let me make that a practice. Let me make it so the kids can self-regulate, because I think they're going to be really screwed up. And I think that they are going to be full of anxiety, and let them learn how to lower their anxiety. Let me learn how to lower my anxiety by making sure that we're all doing a 5-minute meditation. We're writing in our journals. We're doing body scans. We're doing all those things, which I think will help me build my ensemble, because we'll have a connective thing and it will add to what I'm able to do. Again, we moved to the quarter system. So I'm like, okay, so I have 9 weeks. Yes, I'm seeing them virtually every day, but what can I do in 9 weeks versus 18 weeks? Yes, I know I'll get them in another later, but it's weird. So how can I make sure that I am making things that are relevant? Let me do all the things that I don't normally do, because I always focus on performance. There's a lot of theater. My class is not called performance. Well, one of them is, but my beginning theater is not beginning acting. It's beginning theater. And there's a lot of theater. There's, a lot of the tech aspects I don't talk about with them. There's things with jobs. Just because you got put in a theater class doesn't mean that you wanted to be in the theater class. And number 2, it doesn't mean that you want to perform. And so the gift that this time is giving me is that I can explore the things that I always wanted to and never felt I had time to do.
So in looking at, you and I had both written down prior to this, 2 takeaways. What are the 2 things that you're going to focus on?
So my 2 takeaways for what am I going to do in this new normal is, when I've been writing all of my online lesson plans, I'm really revisiting assessment. I never paid attention to assessment. I knew it was good. I knew it wasn't good. The kids should just know. I've talked about it. They weren't listening, and I'm like, let me really look at my assessment, make sure they understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, telling them why, and learning, revamping my assessment. And then that other one is that I'm going to explore all the other ways that I can do theater that aren't performance.
And piggybacking on that, one of the things that I'm working on and was going to be trying to change the culture in my new school. I just finished my 29th year, and this is my end of my first year at my new school, and we had started an acting conservatory that was going to be the production class. So the class that you had to audition to get into the conservatory, but once you're in the conservatory, you were guaranteed a role in whatever show we were going to do. Well, we were going to do Peter and the Starcatchers. That doesn't work in this. And I've had students that have kind of through the years in the program equated theater with performance only. So it's students that didn't audition for conservatory in the fall because they didn't want to do a straight play. They were waiting until the spring to do the musical. So one of the things that I need to do, or one of my goals for this year, is to change the culture of the program or the perception of the students that being in a conservatory is actually studying an actor's craft versus doing a play. I'm teaching you how to be an actor. I'm not teaching you how to be in this role in this play. So that's my first one. And even more importantly, we talked a lot about making connections with kids, etc. And I really am interested in exploring how I can make connections, especially those first few weeks. I know that Julie, you and I have been talking about this. We've got some pretty fragile kids that are going to come back with a lot of raw emotion. And how do I make a connection again in this box? And how do I create a sense of community? So those are my two, is changing that culture and creating connection and community.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the goals that I have. And if everything else then will trickle down from those goals, it's going to help me to focus also with my curriculum, because like Julie said, there's a million things that I can do. I've only got 9 weeks. So if I keep those two goals in mind, it will help frame what those 9 weeks are going to look like. As we go through this year, it's uncharted territory. We're all first-year teachers. We're going to link arms and hang on together. And so if you have any questions or anything that you just want to brainstorm or talk about or commiserate, we are here for you. Our email address is teachtechtheater@gmail.com, and our website is teachtechtheater.org. And we look forward to hearing from you. We're all on this journey together. Just remain steadfast. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and share. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.